Hello and welcome to another ravishing and interesting episode of Coconut Chats. To all our listeners, first, for those of you who've been listening to us for over a while, we would like to thank you for giving us your valuable feedback and ideas and comments. We have read all of them, we appreciate them, and again, a big thanks to you. For those of you who are listening to us for the very first time, I hope that you will enjoy our conversation and we would have your prolonged support for all our journey. Today, we are talking about something that's very relevant and that's very meaningful, and more so after watching this reality show on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. We thought it's pertinent that we talk about this as to how the social media is causing a change in our lives. And on that note, around the table, I have with me Harita
Hi everyone.
and I have Shomita.
Hello everyone.
So, on that note, ladies, we're talking about how social media crept into our lives gradually one day, and now needless to say, we all kind of engulfed into its cages. But we would like to start off by kind of noticing the timeline of how social media actually emerged, right? The birth of this whole concept called technology. So, I would like to take you back to Herbert Marshall McLuhan, who was a Canadian philosopher and he was the one who first coined the term global village. He was also the one who predicted the use of World Wide Web or WWW as we know it 30 years before it was invented. I mean, like, it's just unimaginable right now, but he did that way before its time. And I also think when I have to talk about the emergence of social media, the first bona fide social media app was a platform released was the Plato system in the 70s by University of Illinois, and then it was marketed by Control Data Corporation. So, needless to say, from 1970s, we've been seeing the use of these platforms. Then other GUIs emerged, and then OSs emerged, and then you had the other social media platforms like Messenger and Skype and Orkut and whatnot. So this was what I could observe as a timeline for social media coming into our lives. What about you, Shomita? When did social media first touch you?
Yeah, so I would say social media came into my life after I was 18. So I didn't have a personal computer until I finished high school. And even when I was after school, when I was around 18, I had one of those Nokia phones which can only be used for calling. And that too was considered a luxury in those days. And my uncle gifted one to me, and my parents were like, "Why you are giving that to a teenager? We shouldn't be giving phone to a teenager." My parents were quite strict, and in fact, there was no cable or satellite connection in TV in our house. We only had those channels back in India at that time, DD1 and DD2, and that's all. That's how we were connected to the world. Yeah, newspapers, magazines, books were always there, but talking about late 90s in India, that's how it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, after school, I pursued bachelor's in computer engineering, and that's when I got introduced to computers. I had one in my ho house, but there was no internet connection, so it was mostly used for like practicing coding and other stuffs that I learned in college. So gradually, towards the end of college, we had to have internet connection to stay connected, like, and for mostly the education purpose to know few new things that are coming into the market at that time and all those things. So, and in social media, I think Orkut was the first app I used, and I was kind of late in joining Orkut because by the time I joined, all the cool guys or cool people, sorry, yeah, they have already moved on to Facebook, and I was like made fun of by my cousins and friends that I was so lagging behind or so unfamiliar in with social media stuffs. And but one thing I have noticed that before I started using social media, I never felt that I was missing anything. In fact, most of my teen years were very busy. Like I had friends to play with, we used to hang out all the time, and I was kind bit of an outgoing person. So if I won't go out and kind of hang out with friends, I would feel that my day has been wasted. And social media actually became important to me when I started living alone. I got my first smartphone when I was around 22 and I got a job. I started living by myself in a different city, and at that time, Facebook was the most comfortable way to connect with my extended family and friends. And I guess I was lonelier than before as well. So I started spending more time on social media. And I remember when I started working, one of the expectations at work was to check my email first thing in the morning. Initially, I was quite annoyed because I was like, why will I make that like a discipline to check something first thing in the morning before having breakfast or anything? But things have changed now.
Yeah.
Like now, without anyone saying anything to me, I would check my emails, look at my phone first thing in the morning as soon as I open my eyes. So, yeah, that's how social media got into me.
Yeah, it's all become a part of the part of our lifestyle. Harita, moving on, how did social media come into your life and when?
Yeah, so I think I got onto social media a lot younger than what Shomita was. I remember using, well, I grew up in New Zealand, so our social media was a little bit different to India, but I remember using MSN Messenger probably when I was about 15 or 16, so I think it was in 2003. And back then we just thought it was really cool to spend the day at school with your friends and then you come home and chat to each other on MSN Messenger. For some reason everyone thought that was really cool. And there were like, I remember MSN Messenger had these groups that you could join based on like your interests and hobbies and that type of stuff, and you would be in chat rooms with people that you don't always know, like people from all over the world. And thinking in hindsight now, 15, 16 years later, I think that's actually a bit weird, chatting to people that you've never met. And on MSN Messenger, I don't think you could really see what people look like either unless they actually had their photo as their display picture, I think. But yeah, that's how I first got onto social media. Um, and back then it was also dial-up internet, so half the time you'd get disconnected and then you just wouldn't bother connecting again, and it was always really slow. um, but then after that, well, actually, a part of me actually thought it was kind of cool because I have quite a lot of family in America and Canada, and I'd met them for the first time in my life when I was 13. So I thought, oh, this is a cool way to keep in contact with them without our parents needing to ring each other and things like that, because back then we were quite young. But you had to be online at the same time to be able to chat to each other, which was hard given the time difference. But then I got onto Bebo when that came out. I don't know if you ladies remember that. That would have been, I think it was, would have been maybe 2005, 2006. And we all thought that was quite cool because you could change your backgrounds to like whatever you wanted. It could be photos or their, generic backgrounds, but there were always lots of backgrounds to choose from. And you could chat to each other the way that you can leave messages on other people's Facebook pages, but this was on Bebo. So you didn't have to be online at the same time to converse with someone. You could just leave a message on their page and then they reply and leave a message on your page. So that was for a few years and that was good. And you could also upload photos on that. So like I could always see photos of what my cousins in America were doing and vice versa. So it was a good way to just keep in contact with people that I didn't see at school or see regularly. And then I remember getting a Facebook account in 2009, and I actually got it when I was on holiday in India because a lot of my friends had Facebook and I never really knew what Facebook was. I've never ever been into technology when I was younger, so I was always the last person to get onto any bandwagon. And I just remember when I was in India and a few of my friends emailed me, because this is when, before social media was really a big thing. And I was in India for 2 months during my university holidays, and a few friends just said to me, oh, can you just hurry up and get Facebook because it's the easiest way to keep in contact with you. So I downloaded it, not even really knowing what it was. But then, yep, got that. And I'm surprised that like 11 years later, Facebook is still the biggest social media platform in the world. Because when it first came out, I remember people thinking, oh, how long is this going to last for? Bebo only lasted for 2 or 3 years this will probably die out in a few years. MySpace might take over or something might take over, but 11 years later, and Facebook is still like the thing people are using the most. Yeah, so that's basically how I went through social media till now. And I'm the same as Shomita. Like back in the day, I never really cared about social media or anything. And now it's like every time I have a spare couple of minutes, I was like, go on to Facebook, go on to Instagram or whatever. And I just, half the time, not even with a purpose, it's just to scroll, just to see what people are doing. Yeah. What about you, Chris?
It's just the same. No point in going over my daily lifestyle. It's just the same. Too much on Facebook and Instagram, but yeah, guilty as charged. We all engulfed by it. Um, Moving on then, where do we see the tides changing from now? Do we see any disadvantages? Do we see any advantages? What do you ladies think? I'll start off with you, Harita.
In terms of the tides changing, I think, well, like with anything new that comes out, it's the younger generation that have got much more of a technology interest and background, and they're the ones that end up teaching the older generation, like our parents and grandparents, how to use it. So that's both, it's both good and bad, because I know the older people like using it, but half the time they need the younger people to show them. So I guess in that way, you know, the people like our parents, whatever they did as 20 and 30-year-olds is not what we are doing as 20 and 30-year-olds. So we're the ones now showing them the way. So I don't really know if it's good and bad, but the tides are definitely changing.
Shomita, what about you?
Yeah, I think, well, internet is one of the most important, if not the most important thing that happened in the history of mankind. And now for the last 10 months, the world has seen its power like never before. I'm quite grateful to internet for still being able to hold on to my job without stepping out of my house for last 8 months. So, when social media was introduced, undoubtedly it was created with good intentions. But over the years, I think there has been some major damages done to the current generation, especially to those who started using it from a very early age. So, we can see that first of all, people are now more interested in having virtual friends. We are thorough with what's going on with our Facebook friends, but we don't know a thing about our next door neighbors. In fact, I myself doesn't know who stays like in the next door. I have seen that lady, but I never talked to her. So, in fact, our neighbors are far off nowadays. Most of the teenagers doesn't even talk to their parents. I have seen in many households the parents are having hard time to have a conversation with their like little grown up kids who are in their teens, and not even teens, like kids who are 8 9 years old. They are always on their iPad, not talking to their parents much. So dinner conversations are getting harder these days. And in earlier days, people used to meet other people during their daily office transits. So, in fact, I first met my husband while commuting to office. Luckily, I wasn't on phone at that time. But not only that, I have made many friends over years while traveling to school, colleges, and office in India. But I don't see that as much of a possibility nowadays because most of the time when I'm in the train and my office now is like a 30 minutes train ride from my house. So whenever I get into the train, I can see that all the passengers are on the phone or their laptop. No one is talking to their co-passengers or looking out of the window, and even kids are busy on their iPads watching cartoons or whatever. Like, no one is interested in like admiring the nature because the view on both the sides are quite good. Like, in fact, I myself enjoy a lot looking out of the window and seeing what's happening out there. But yeah, that's what I think. And another very interesting thing, which I have noticed, and I believe that you guys have, that this has crossed your mind as well, that in a generation where most people are not comfortable getting criticized by their own family, and at the same time, we are making ourselves so vulnerable by exposing our life on social media. So every small things that happen in in a person's life. They are posting it on social media, what they're eating, where they're going, whatever, how they're dressing up, everything is on it. And then they are getting criticized by the world because they are putting it out there. And after a certain age, maybe people can deal with this kind of criticism, but for younger generation, it's very difficult. They have there have been so many instances of teenagers getting upset, committing suicide, self-harm, and also sometimes going for unnecessary cosmetic surgeries because some random person has uh, committed something on their pics. So this is something very concerning. That's what I think. Yep. What do you think, Chris?
Um, I would like to kind of summarize on both what both of you said. We are on the social cusp, if that makes any sense to our listeners. We are on the break-even point. As much as we are delving into the negative, we are also uplifting our positive sides. As you mentioned, Shomita, we are all thirsty for social validation. I cook something, I put it for validation. I look like someone, I put it for validation. So we are all kind of madly following that bandwagon. But social media was initially created so that people can join to each other, people can network properly. It was meant to for better networking. But now, as referring to why I said it was on the break-even point, now the human being is in fact turned into a peripheral system where the technicians backstage can just interact with our minds to kind of develop their market, to develop their business, to see what brands we are following. The next day, that advertisement is reflected on my Google and WhatsApp and all my social media platforms, right? So we are socially being turned into slaves slowly. We were supposed to be the masters, now we are the slaves now. So gradually, and that's what concerns me. But on the other hand, if I talk about the positivities, it's all reached like the tiniest parts and it's created major revolutions. I'll very quickly put up two examples which I couldn't resist not sharing with our listeners. In Saudi, women rights campaign started a revolution on Twitter, which had 2.7 million tweets with the hashtag of end male guardianship. And with that, women in Saudi had freedom to even drive, and they had a lot of freedom in their other rights, which were not seen before. And the other one, give me a sec. The other one was in Africa because we all realized that Africa was literally untouched and there were no investors or no businessmen who would rather wanted to touch that part of the world. But social media was literally and is also revolutionizing Africa in a country where which was previously seemed unattractive now is attracting a lot of investors, philanthropists, businessmen and whatnot. So African cheetahs or the young males out there, they are bringing optical fibers as a tide of change. Africa is on the global map. People are noticing and they are just booming and business is growing all thanks to social media. So I believe we are well on the break-even point. Moving on, all these giants that we talk about, whether you start from Mark or Jeff Bezos and whoever, what do you guys think they're thinking when they're always continuously thinking about the apps they created? What is going on in their minds? Harita, I'll start with you.
Well, I think the main thing that motivated all of them, so like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Amazon, any type of social media or even website that's out there, the main motivation was obviously to make money. They were all thinking this is the next billion-dollar idea that's going to take over the world. Some of them obviously succeeded, like Mark Zuckerberg. Some of them not so much. The person that invented Bebo and MySpace was probably also thinking that, but they would have made their money, but then something better came along and took over, and then they were forgotten about quickly after. I think when someone does anything like this, obviously the number one motivator is to make money, but then the other stuff was also to socially connect people. That's why it's called social media at the end of the day. It's to connect you to people that you wouldn't be able to connect with on a daily basis, like your friends and family that are overseas, or obviously in this year it's come in a lot of good use, things like Zoom, and just having internet at home all day every day means you can do your job from home during a pandemic. So that was obviously no one's motivation 5-10 years ago, but in the end things like that paid off. I think something like Zoom was made mostly with the intention of getting people through this pandemic. I think it existed a few years ago, but not in the same capacity that it exists right now. But at the end of the day, they were all made to socially connect you to everyone in your social life, I guess. Things like Skype made seeing each other face to face easier. So then things like the telephone were put away because now you could see your auntie's face, whereas before you were just talking to your auntie over the phone, not actually remembering what each other looked like. Things like Instagram, I think, obviously, as well as making money, Instagram is that social media platform where they don't use many words, but it's all about photos. So they obviously help the hospitality and tourism industry, because if I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see this really nice photo of, I don't know, some bar or something, and I'm thinking, oh, where's that bar? I really want to go and check that out because that cocktail looks so nice. Or I see a photo of a really nice beach and I want to find out what country it's in. And then before you know it, that's where you're booking your next holiday to. So Instagram was kind of made with that idea of like working with marketing. And they, as you can tell, Instagram has got so many like partnerships with the restaurant industry, the tourism industry, and also like what they call social media influencers. So that's just like the regular person that starts posting very good quality type photos, and then they work closely with companies, and then they get a cut out of the profit for any like any people they refer to that product or that holiday or whatever. So Instagram again is a little bit different to Facebook because it's all with that marketing thing idea. I think Instagram is not so much to connect people to each other, but it's more to connect you to things in the world. So I think that's what the idea was. But at the end of the day, every person that went into this idea of creating the next best platform, they wanted to make like a few $1 billion and retire early.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Shomita, what do you think? What goes on in their minds when they kind of develop their platforms?
Yeah, I believe the intention was definitely good to do good, and not only money, but they also wanted to connect the world. So internet is what brought globalization. But this being from software industry, being a software engineer, one thing I know about software, in making software, is when we design something, then we always think about what our customers would like to have. And social media, in social media, when we have the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, as Harita already explained a few things there. So when the engineers are designing that, they are continuously anticipating what the user will look for next. So even when we are looking at Facebook, so if we are scrolling through, you will see advertisement. If I don't know if you have noticed, whatever you have searched in Google sometime back, that will come as suggestions in your Facebook. So everything is kind of linked, and they are kind of somewhere we are getting tracked. Uh, Everything we are doing on internet, the other apps are aware of that. And through these continuous suggestions, I think the minds of people are getting controlled. We are not getting that space to think something else. Whatever we are already thinking, we are just getting along in that but one single direction. And I think that's what causing more and more polarization these days. So if you have a thought that, okay, I will just give an instance, say there are two political parties with two agendas, and you are just searching for something related to one of the parties. So internet will have that information, and you will continuously get suggestions and posts related to that single party. So maybe when you started searching it, browsing it, you would have just started with, okay, let's see what this was their agenda. But gradually you will be fed so much information that you will be kind of convinced with whatever they're doing. And at the same time, we don't know whether that information is correct or not, because someone has put that out there with some purpose, and no one is going there and verifying whether that's valid, that's legit or not. It's just out there. And we are not getting information for of the other party as well. This is just an instance I'm giving. So this is how we are, I think, getting into polarization these days. And another thing I would like to mention, that globalization is definitely, as it's a very good thing, because we now know a lot about the world than we used to few years back. But through this connecting people, one big issue that has arisen, which I don't think people would have anticipated it before or not, is that not everyone's situation, not everyone's culture is same. So if I was brought up in a way, but now when I see something that is totally opposite to what I know so far, what I have learned so far, so I may like it, I may dislike it. Liking it, admiring it, knowing it, it's a different thing. But there have been many cases where there is strong hatred of things that are different to you, and then people are going out on agendas like killing people in order to convince them that you are wrong and our way is right. So that is another cause of like a worldwide struggle, I would say, and that has been aggravated every moment by social media, in my understanding. Yep, I would like to mention one Netflix series, The Caliphate. Young girls in Europe, they are brainwashed just by watching YouTube videos, and they're happily leaving their family to fight for ISIS. So, and the same thing is happening in India thanks to social media. The new definition of Hinduism is floating around. This massive polarization has never been there before. In fact, the expectation from internet was kind of opposite. They should have put everything uh, out there for people to learn from it, to improve their knowledge from it. But yeah, when business comes into the picture, things get kind of mixed up. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, very well said. To me, I think when these guys created the social media, they had a different intention. They wanted to kind of reach out to masses and create money, as all of you already mentioned. But I would like to point out on what they should be thinking right now. With so much of cybercrime going on, they should be thinking about elevated cybersecurity. They should be thinking about data regulation policy on how much data is enough data, how much are we leading out to the people to ensure that all their data is safe and secure. Because at the same time, we are using the social media platforms, but we don't want another blue whale challenge happening where young children are killed on lure of some mindless game that's being delivered. And another thing we need to be thinking is which direction are we going? Because obviously we don't want another Cambridge Analytica happening where mass discussion of data security and data breaching happen. We don't want that happening. So I'm sure they are thinking in the correct terms, but they should be thinking mainly on cybercrime, cybersecurity, and data regulation because that is need of the hour. That is something we all should be concerned about. Last but not the least, probably the finishing question of the conversation. Are we moving toward a bleak or a better future, Harita? One-liner.
Well, I think it depends on the user. I think the people that started these platforms never wanted the future to be bleak from the outcome of their platforms, and they never thought things like online bullying or computer hacking or something that would be common on their platform. But then again, that's because of the user. You've got people out there that become keyboard warriors because they see something they don't like on a social media post and they can just say whatever they want without having to say it to the person's face. So then that bullying starts. But that's a negative side effect because of the people using the platform, not because of the people that made the platform. And then I guess in a way, like kind of a bleak thing, but again, it's part of something the user needs to be wary of, is that you lose a lot of your privacy with a lot of these social media platforms. If you have an Instagram page that's not set on private, then anyone can just search your name and start following you without having to request you to accept it or whatever. So sometimes you have to be careful what you post on your social media, because if your boss or someone, the wrong person sees it, it could cause haywire in your actual life. I think though, it's generally it's a lot better because you can keep in contact at the touch of a finger. Literally, you can be out and about doing your daily errands or at work, and you can just quickly send someone on the other side of the world a message. Another good thing is that it can help raise money for charities. Like Facebook does this thing where on your birthday, you can ask all your Facebook friends and followers to donate money towards a charity of your choice. And like something like that, back in the day, if you wanted to raise money for charity, you would have to go door knocking or like sell chocolates at work or something. And this is just so much easier. Like an example I've got, 2 weeks ago, I helped organize a fundraiser ball for the Wellington Women's Refuge, and we didn't have to spend any money at all on marketing. We didn't have to post printers, we didn't have to door knocking, nothing. We just advertised via Facebook and Instagram, and within 3 weeks our fundraiser ball was sold out. We'd sold all the tickets we had, and that was literally through advertising through social media. So it can be used for good things, but it's up to the user how they use it. And you can't control a population of 7 billion people or whatever the world is now. You can't control the whole population on how they're going to use something. So yeah, I think in my opinion it's a good future, but everyone else, I don't know.
Shomita, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's all in the hands of the great minds. With automation and robotics, nothing is impossible in this world. So many researches have been done on how the human mind reacts to different occasions. So probably those things can be included in the algorithm that are used behind social media. And if we can find out the threshold where the breaking point where people move from using something to addiction, then we can include that while building the software. Specifically in social media, then maybe we can save the young people from getting addicted to this virtual world and reestablish their human relationships. And till then, I think matured people need to focus more on the younger generation, help them understand the right way to reach an opinion. More awareness should be spread that what we see virtually may not be true all the time. So we need to explore all sides of the story. And if it's not coming up in your search, we have to have that push and type it in correct words and look for it. And that's how I think we can come out of it. Until then, it's all heading towards chaos, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think we are going to a generation which is becoming emotionally bleak and with very few or rather minimum human interaction. So we are going towards a direction where we are automatically promoting artificial intelligence. Tesla is releasing self-parking cars, brain chips that can connect to the computer chips, and there's a hotel in Japan, it's called the Hemna Hotel, which is listed as the first of its kind in Guinness Book because it's a hotel which is completely run by robots. There is no human interaction. So I don't know which way we are going. Personally, I would not want my children to go into a future which is completely controlled by computers. So if that is that, then we are on an emotionally very dilapidated structure, and we need to rethink as to where we are going in terms of technology, and is this the kind of human evolution that we would want in the next 100 years? That's a question that I'll leave to our listeners to kind of ponder over and let us know if they have any comments on that. With that, today we come to the closing of this amazing episode. We would like just to thank our listeners to listening to us, and if you've got any feedbacks or comments, please reach us out at coconutchats@gmail.com. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel, which is Coconut Chats. We will be back very soon with another interesting episode for you all of you. Till then, stay safe, stay well, and thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.